So I just got my hair colored blonde, which is why it's important now more than ever to preserve my hair health. That is why I am obsessed with Well Bell. Well Bell is a hair, skin, and nail supplement that has truly changed my life. I went from having super dry, damaged, and overprocessed hair to shiny, long, and healthy hair in a matter of months. Now I feel zero worry when I go to the hair salon because I know Well Bell contains all of the best ingredients to keep my hair strong and healthy. Well Bell is science-backed and was created by a Harvard scientist. And if you don't believe me about the results, you can go to my IG highlight titled Well Bell or go to their website to see the countless people that they have helped through their hair journeys. If you want to test it out for yourself, you can use code Veronica10 at checkout for 10% off your order. That's code Veronica10, Veronica 10 at checkout. I highly recommend the subscription because you typically start seeing results in about 2 months. That's code Veronica10, Veronica 10 at checkout. Hello, and welcome back to Martinis and Bikinis. I am your hostess, Veronica Droulia. Today we have a super exciting guest. Not only is she a social media star who has traveled the world on social media tours and built a massive following, but she is also an insanely talented writer and hopeless romantic. Say hello to Carrie Berk. Carrie is the author of my real-life rom-com, which is available on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, and basically anywhere you can get a book. She also has guest written for publications like the New York Post, Page Six, the Huffington Post, and so much more. She was actually named after the Carrie Bradshaw, and in this episode, we talk about her wild experience growing up in the city, her rise to social media fame amidst heartbreak, writing her book, Finding Yourself, learning to practice self-love, and even hanging out at Sarah Jessica Parker's and having her serve her banana juice. She's truly such a remarkable young woman, and I am so excited to introduce you to her. So without further ado, my little teenies, please welcome Carrie Berk to Martinis and Bikinis. Hello, and welcome to Martinis and Bikinis, the podcast for everything under the sun. I am your hostess, Veronica Droulia, and I am here to help you navigate your 20s through all things lifestyle, beauty, and fashion. So, if you're ready, let's dive into today's episode. Carrie Berk, welcome to Martinis and Bikinis.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you on today because you just released a book, which is just so incredible. And honestly, like, what a dream. You are slaying, and I'm obsessed. And it's called My Real Life Rom-Com. And I cannot wait to get into this because a big part of what we talk about on this show is dating. And that is basically the epitome of this book. And I love that you took your own personal experiences and were like really raw and vulnerable, and now it's shared with the public, and I'm sure it's a scary thing to do. But first thing I want to start out with is the roots. I do this with all my guests, and I just like to have people tell us more about themselves, maybe where they're from or how you got to where you are today, maybe some things people don't know about you, but feel free to share.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in New York City. I've been writing since I was 8 years old when I came out with my first book series. It was a mother-daughter book series with my mom called The Cupcake Club. So I wrote children's books for many years. That's kind of how I got my start in the writing world. And as I've kind of grown up and come into my own as a writer, I've delved into some more mature topics. So I do a lot of freelance work for different publications like the New York Post, Page Six, Huffington Post. But this book came into my life during the pandemic, really as a passion project, because I realized there were no books out there written by a teenager for teenagers about love and relationships, which brings us here.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's so cool that you grew up in New York, and you talk about that in the intro of your book about what it was like growing up here as a kid and the bar and bat mitzvah scene and all the celebrity appearances and all of that craziness. What was that like? Because I feel like that is truly out of a movie. And I feel like people that are like from New York understand that, but maybe for the audience members that are not from here and kind of look at those situations as like this movie-esque, like picturesque experience. Like, what was that like? And like, how has that like shaped you into who you are today?
I mean, at the time, growing up in New York, this was my normal. So I didn't know anything else. So to me, it was all normal. But as I've kind of grown up and heard other people's experiences, I realized how kind of out of the ordinary it was and how grateful I am to have grown up in Manhattan, where there are so many unique experiences. Like, as you're referring to, I went to a bunch of bar and bat mitzvahs as a teenager. And for some reason, it was a trend to have celebrities at your bar bat mitzvah. So you had like the bat mitzvah girl coming in on a zip line, and then like, Nick Jonas on the stage, or Becky G singing. So just crazy stuff going on. I did not have any of that at mine. Mine was still really cool. I had a Hollywood theme, and we had like Oscar statues there and like a big Carrie Wood sign. But no,
Yes,
I didn't
Carrie
have any
would.
celebrities.
I love that. Yeah. The intro of your book is just so well written and it really sets the tone. And you talk about how your mom was actually a writer. And did she inspire you to become a writer as well? Was that something that you guys practiced together? I know you mentioned you were writing children's books and co-authoring together, but I think that's like really amazing that you followed in her footsteps. Is she like a really big inspiration for you?
She's definitely a huge inspiration. I don't want to say like we sat down together and like she taught me. I feel like I learned most about writing in school in second
Mhm.
grade, but I definitely learned by example because I grew up watching her type away at her computer and just super inspired by how fast she writes and how well she does it. So yeah, I've definitely been inspired by her work ethic, and I think working with her on so many books, I feel like I've been able to kind of pick up on that, and she's just kind of naturally like given me some of those characteristics by leading by example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know you talk a lot about like your first like experiences with intimacy and relationships towards the beginning of your book. And I think it's like so vulnerable to put yourself into this position to be like putting these things into writing and then sharing it publicly. Was that scary for you or was it kind of just like a release?
I think as I was writing it, it was a release because the book was really a form of self therapy for me. It started off as a diary, it didn't start off as a book. It started off as me writing in my diary about these experiences, trying to make sense of them through the only way I know how, which is writing. And
Right.
eventually I had all of these stories and I put them together and it formed something that was long enough to be a book. So
Yeah.
originally, this was just a coping mechanism for me to make sense of why some guy broke up with me, or why this didn't work out, why I got ghosted, all these unique situations that we kind of all go through, not just as teenagers, but as people. So that was really exciting, I think, for me to explore. But when the book came out, yes, I was a little nervous, especially like about stuff like intimacy and coming out there about that. I was worried like some of the guys were going to reach out to me and like recognize themselves in the book, and so that was a big worry. I was worried
Yeah.
because I have a boyfriend, and I was kind of I told him about the book like on our first date, so he like knew what was coming. But I was worried like he was gonna read it and kind of be like alarmed by everything that went on, and that like my dating life is in the public eye. So there was a lot to worry about. But ultimately, I think the book has been received really well because of how honest it is and how vulnerable it is. So I I wouldn't take anything back. And also, my boyfriend has been super supportive in this mission because he knows like the ultimate goal is just to inspire others and make them feel comfortable talking openly about their own stories.
Absolutely. I was wondering if it was a diary that you had written to use as inspiration towards this book because you have so many detailed aspects of these
Yeah.
situations. And I was like, wow, she must have the best memory ever.
Oh my God. So
Because,
I have the worst memory. I literally have the worst memory ever. If some of these situations, I'll let you in on a little secret. Some of these situations, if I sensed it was going downhill in the middle of the date, when I would go to the bathroom, I would text a friend like some of the details, and I'd be like, "Write this down for rom com." I gotta write this later, and I'd like text her some of the details, and she'd send me like a list later of everything I texted her during the date.
That's
So that's what I
genius.
some of the details.
That's
Or
genius. Because then your friends are holding you accountable and like it's not just like you jotting it in your notes app and it gets lost. Like they're like, hey, Carrie, you have to write about this.
Or if it's like a super emotional one and I don't feel like writing or texting anyone, I think I did this for one of them. I voice memoed in my phone, like an hour-long voice memo. And when I was writing, I had to listen to the voice memo and I was like crying in the voice memo. So it kind of put me back in that space when I had to like write what was going on in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many stories that you tell that whenever I was reading, I related to pretty much every single one of them. But I think in retrospect, everything that you are jotting down, someone has been through before. And it's honestly very therapeutic. And I think you should be really proud of yourself because you're like spreading this amongst the masses and helping other women see that, you know, these situations that they may be in that are stressing them out or making them sad and maybe debilitating to some extent is giving them hope and showing them that, you know, if they are a hopeless romantic, then, you know, there's a brighter side. And I know you mentioned at the beginning as well that you have always been a little boy crazy, even as a little girl. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. But would you consider yourself a hopeless romantic? And I'm sure you do, considering you wrote a rom com.
I wrote a rom com. That's why it's called my real life rom com. So yeah, every single rom com movie I've watched growing up, as I was going through my own dating experiences, I always had that kind of fairy tale romance in the back of my mind, wanting it to end the way it ends in a rom com, with the two people getting together and living happily ever after. But kind of what I realized that in writing this book is that my real life rom com is not that. Like my real life rom com and our real life rom com is more than just a fairy tale. It's hard and it hurts and it could be pretty numbing and paralyzing at times. So that's what it means
Absolutely.
to have a real life rom com. That's what this book is. It's not just, you know, fun experiences and dating, which that's definitely a lot of it. But most of these situations, I wind up getting my heart broken at the end of it and learning a lot about myself and the way I go about relationships and also just, you know, the way I think and feel as a human being. So that's what it means to have your real life rom com.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because in the first few chapters, you discuss your first love. And I know that that was amidst like your social media stardom.
Right.
That is so wild to me that you were experiencing all these different life moments and then having this first relationship or first love that ended in heartbreak. I can't imagine like what type of stress you were going through, especially with it being in the public eye like that. So what was that like? And what have you learned since that relationship and since your first love?
Oh, I've learned a lot. I think in that moment, it was just pure adrenaline. Being on a social media tour, touring the country, and falling in love with someone at the same time. I mean, it was exhilarating. Everything was, you know, perfect. And I thought it was going to stay perfect until I kind of came back down from reality, returned home. This person that I was in love with, he lived in a different country. So he went back home, and that obviously was really difficult and put a strain on our relationship. And I didn't know how it was going to work, but for some reason I thought it would because I was young and a little bit ignorant and I didn't know any better. So as a result, I had my heart broken in a really shitty way, as an immature 16-year-old boy would. His mom texted my mom to break up with me, so he didn't even like tell me himself. So that was really difficult. In the book,
I
I'm really
cannot believe that. That
no,
is like wild.
yeah.
That
In
is
the book,
insane.
that very specifically. This was actually where rom-com began. I wrote about 8 pages that day about my relationship because I was worried I was going to forget what it felt like to be in love, and I didn't think I would ever fall in love again. So I wrote what it was like, what I was feeling, where I was when I found out I had my heart broken. And, I put it away. I didn't look at that journal entry again until the pandemic, which is when I kept writing and made rom-com. But in terms of what I learned from that relationship, I think I didn't see it back then, but the problem was that everything was so perfect. You always hear like too good to be true. Like in this case, it was. Like me and this person, we were having a great time. We were touring the country, like having so much fun. But the reality was we didn't know anything about each other. We just knew we were like infatuated with each other, but I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know like what made him tick. I didn't know what he liked to do for fun. I knew nothing about him. And looking back now, I'm like, holy shit. Like there's a difference between being in love and like falling in love with someone and being in love with someone.
I agree.
Right? Like I was like, you can be in love with someone, but I didn't like, how do I describe it? I loved him, but I wasn't like, I was in love with him, but I didn't love him.
Right. Maybe the idea of him.
Maybe the idea of him, but I think at the moment, yes, I was in love.
Right.
But to love someone is to love who they are fully, not just who they are on the outside and what's being presented to you. I couldn't have loved him because I didn't really know him. So what I learned from that is when you really love someone, you love, the cracks in them. You love them at their worst. You've seen them at their worst. All of these other elements that I didn't even take into account. So love is not just lust. Love is like pain and sadness and loving that part of someone too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like loving them through the hard times and seeing every sort of lens of their personality that you don't typically see within those first few weeks or even months of dating. And I think that's when you really start to fall in love, is whenever you get to like learn those flaws but still accept them. And I think that's really cool that you learned that from that first relationship, because first loves are hard. I think everybody's had that experience of just like that earth-shattering heartbreak, and typically that is with your first love because it's something you're experiencing for the first time. I know I had that, and I'm sure every woman has had that. But I think it's really cool that you opened up the space to talk about it. I did notice that you changed everyone's name to keep them a mystery, or to keep their identity a secret. So kudos to you, because you totally could have just...
If I expose them, I don't give a fuck. I don't talk to any of these people. Like I would have exposed them. This is for legal reasons only. Like I don't want to get sued.
True. That's smart. Yeah. That's very smart.
Yeah, but I did hear from a few of them after the book came out.
Oh my gosh, what did they say? Were they like supportive, or were they like, I can't believe you wrote that about me?
People out of the woodwork just saying like, congratulations. I think 3 of them said congratulations. But these are people who don't follow me, that I haven't heard from in years, just would like comment on a post or like Snapchat me congratulations. And don't go checking on the post. All the comments were deleted.
Oh, yeah. They always come back. They always come back. I swear.
So crazy. Like to see people just like pop up just to say congratulations. I'm like, you don't give 2 shits about it. You know you're in the book. Like you're trying to keep me sweet so I don't expose you.
Yeah. Like so rude. Yeah. That's crazy. I feel like it's whenever you're like doing really well that people always like come back. And I feel like that was just their way of like being like, hey, I'm still here. I know you're writing about me.
I think they knew I was writing about them, and they were worried they were going to get exposed, which is why they were like trying to keep me sweet. Like, oh, hi, congratulations. Like make it seem like we ended on a good note. And I'm like,
yeah. I love how in the book too, you aren't like presenting yourself as this like perfect individual when it comes to dating. You talk about like kissing your best friend's ex-boyfriend and how like your first love dumped you through his mom. And I think it's again like very raw to be able to do those sorts of things because I think in life, nothing is linear. Everybody has experiences that maybe they're not proud of. And I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to do those things. But like, what was that like? Like, just living in New York and like having these like whirlwind experiences romantically.
I think when I think back to the people I wrote about in this book, I never saw anyone as my person per se, but in being a hopeless romantic, I was hopeful that I was going to get a boyfriend. Like the end goal for me was always boyfriend. I was young. I've never had one. I wanted a boyfriend. So yes, I did have a lot of bad dates that would, like at the first date, I'd be like, yeah, this is never going to work. But more often than not, I would give someone the benefit of the doubt and be like, okay, like maybe this is just like a little ick, it'll pass. But overall, I mean, it was a really fun time. I think living in New York City and also just being a social media influencer, I've been exposed to a lot of unique experiences in general, it's specifically in dating, that I just love to talk about and share because not a lot of people are real about that. You see so many fake relationships on social media and they're obviously like not being real. So I'm kind of just presenting like, here's what it's really like. And here's why influencer boys almost always are never the right choice.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like you said earlier, these are universal themes of heartbreak. And, you know, I write about dating someone older, meeting someone older for a night, or kissing your best friend's ex-boyfriend. I mean, these are all very real things that might happen. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, or this book is not like an FU to guys. This is just as real as it gets. I'm not going to present myself as perfect because I'm not. I messed up so many times, and so do a lot of other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nobody's perfect. And I think the people that are trying to present this like perfect image are usually the people that like don't have it together at all. So yeah, I think it's like really admirable that you were able to write about all of those things. But I know you get like a source of inspiration from Sex and the City and Carrie Bradshaw, and that's actually who you were named after. And then you actually became friends with her son at summer camp, and she like gave you sweatpants to wear at the house, and y'all were hanging out. What was that experience like?
So at the time, basically, I talk about this in the intro of my book. How it happened was it was my camp friend's friend. So I didn't actually go to camp with him. And he saw a picture of me and was like, oh, she's cute. And that's kind of how it started. So we didn't really, I don't want to say like we dated because we were like 12, but it was like going like
as much as 12-year-olds can. Yeah.
As much as 12-year-olds can. Like movies, like Sugar Factory, like going to restaurants, stuff like that. In terms of visiting her house, so I didn't know who she was. I'd watched Ferris Bueller, so I knew who Matthew Broderick was. So I was freaking out when I saw Ferris Bueller in the house.
Yeah.
But in terms of Sarah Jessica Parker, I knew of her, but I wasn't fully aware of Sex and the City. I was too young to watch it. So when my parents dropped me off to his house one time, and like she opened the door in her robe, you know, they freaked out. So they knew who she was.
They're like, where are you bringing us?
I was just,
that's wild.
It's my friend's mom. Like, what are you talking about?
Like, it's my boyfriend's mom. That is like, I love how you're just like casually saying this. Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah, it was so crazy. I don't talk to him anymore, but if I see Sarah Jessica at events, I do go up to her and say hello, and sometimes she'll ask me how my writing's going. So she remembers, which is really cool.
That is really cool. It's like foreshadowing. It's like you didn't even know what was about to stem from all of that.
No, I mean, I hope she doesn't think I'm like a creep. Like that it was like some like game plan all along. That like I really had no idea who she was back then.
No, I mean, you were so young, and obviously, like, that show is iconic, but any 12-year-old would probably not be watching that show and,
I mean,
like,
now I'm
taking notes.
kicking myself. Like, I look back now and I'm like, she served me banana juice. Like, Carrie Bradshaw served me banana juice in her house. And I've
That's
watched, obviously,
crazy.
Sex in the City like 10 times over now, and I'm obsessed. So I look back and I'm like, oh, I can't believe that was my life.
Oh my gosh, I actually have a pillow on my bed, and it says, "I'm
Yeah.
definitely a Carrie,"
Yeah,
and
I'll have one of those. I think it's
I
like
was
my,
thinking about you today whenever I was making my bed. I
oh,
was like, "Oh, I'm about to go interview her. This is gonna be so fun."
oh,
But I'd love to hear more about, like, what your writing process was like, because I know you started during COVID, and I feel like you were getting a lot of inspiration from your diary,
mhm.
and I can't imagine what it was like putting all of these pieces together. But I'd love to hear more about your writing style and how you structured everything and how
Yeah.
you made it happen.
So, as you know, each chapter was dedicated to a different guy, a different relationship, a different experience. So I would write about these experiences as they were happening individually. So this was a long process. Like I said, I unofficially started writing it after my first breakup when I was 16 and then put it away. I officially started writing when I was 18. And as I was going through these unique experiences in dating, I knew I was writing a book. So if I sensed it wasn't working out, I was starting to write about it. Like I said, I was texting my friend in the bathroom, like, oh, I gotta write about this later. Especially like if I had just gone through a breakup, the first thing I would do would be to sit down at my computer and write everything down I can remember. I was thinking about it for myself at first. Like I said, self therapy, trying to kind of cope with these memories and make sense of them. It really helped me find closure with a lot of these situations and writing them down. So I would write about it like the day after I got my heart broken or in the middle of the night when I got home from like a crazy date. So it was a very in the moment thing. And that's why it's
Right.
so detailed as you read it. But yeah, my process was pretty disjointed. I wrote most of this book on my phone in the notes app on airplanes because a lot of it was like on trips or social media tours. So I'd be on like a 6 hour flight home from LA, like still crying and being like, okay, like let me write down everything that just happened. And
Oh my
that's kind of
gosh.
how I did it. And then I'd come home and I'd put it in a document and I'd be like, oh wow, I just wrote like 15 pages. And then I put the
That's
next one
wild.
together.
I actually was a creative writing major in college,
Oh,
and I was a poetry major. So I
that's
always get my notes app out on planes and start jotting
yes.
away little poems. And that's not something I don't think I've shared before on here. But I think there's
Oh,
like this sense of no distraction when you're on a plane, and especially like going somewhere new, or just like feeling like a little isolated amongst like a crowd of people. There's like this weird energy that comes from that, and I feel like that's really cool that that's like how you got like a creative burst, was sitting on an
yeah, I
airplane
love it.
and just jotting away, and then it ended up being like 15 pages worth of content.
Yeah, maybe it's the
That's
social
nuts.
media influencer in me, but I love writing on my phone. Like, I'm
Hmm.
not the type of person who will like sit at her computer for 5 hours and just like write like Carrie Bradshaw. Like, I'm sorry, I'm such a texter. Like, I'll just text in my notes, and before you know it, I'll copy and paste it in Google Drive, and I'll have like a 200-page book. So you
That's
never know.
crazy. Well, you
But
have to
yeah,
come out with a sequel then. There has
I
to
am
be
writing
more.
a second book, but it is
Oh
not a
my
rom
gosh.
com. Yeah, so
Are you allowed to share?
I can share a little bit, but not
Okay.
too much. So
That's okay.
yeah, so for rom com, I promised my boyfriend when we started dating seriously, I'm not. I said to him, I promise I'm not ever going to publish writing about you. I will only write for you. So I think
Oh.
that's when I kind of like knew it was real. Like when we started dating, I just turned in the manuscript for my real life rom com, the final manuscript. So it was done, submitted, couldn't make any changes. And then we went on our first date. And I didn't have an urge for the first time ever. I didn't have an urge to write anything down. I was just living in the moment. because I think something inside me knew it was going to work. And I didn't
Wow.
feel the need to like capture these memories because I knew they were just going to keep coming and I was going to be living through them for a really long time. So I write love letters for him, but I
Wait, that's
don't,
so sweet. You probably write the best love letters ever.
he's pretty good too, believe it or not. Like he gives me a run for my money. It makes me kind of intimidated.
Oh, that's so sweet that you guys do that. I feel like that's kind of a lost art. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's really special that you can share that with each other.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say this on publicly. Oh well. But he just got me for our 1 year anniversary. Since I wrote a book about romance, he wrote me like a little book about our romance, and that was my 1 year anniversary gift, which was
That
so
is, I'm
sweet.
gonna cry. That is so tender.
Yeah, it
I'm
was lovely.
obsessed. No, you should
So
share that. That's like so, I feel like that is definitely just a sign to any women that are out there that are settling or chasing after something that isn't serving them, that there is somebody that could potentially write you a like love letter or
mhm.
love book full of love letters.
It's so
And
crazy
I
to
think
think about.
that's so sweet.
I mean,
He's
look
a
at the book. This
keeper.
took me what, like 14 tries? And then a second, like a sign from God, the second I turned in my manuscript, he was like the first date I went on. So
That's wild.
yeah, it was so
That's
wild.
cool. It's like
Yeah,
everything just started to click after that.
exactly. So I told him on our second date, I was like, this is really awkward, but I'm publishing a book about all my exes. And he's like, okay. And then like I explained it to him more, and he's been so supportive of it. He's unbelievable the week of my book release. But yes, made the promise to not write a sequel. But in a sense, it is a sequel. And what I can say about the second book, so the last chapter is called The Journey to Self Love. And it's about how I kind of came to this mental health crisis in the middle of the pandemic. And I realized that I had been chasing love everywhere else but within myself. And as a result, like my mental health suffered. So I talk a lot about my journey with anxiety and OCD and getting diagnosed when I'm 18, and how kind of coming to terms with my mental health is what has really allowed me to open up with a significant other and finally like develop a real genuine connection. So that's how my book ends. And all I can say about the second book, that chapter is what resonated with the most people. So it's kind of taking those themes and expanding on it.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like if you don't do that own inner work and inner healing, then you can't really show up for somebody else in a relationship as your best self. So I think it's great that you took that time to reflect on yourself. And even though like you did like have this like mental health crises, you were able to come out from the bottom even better and able to find a partner that was well suited for you and was able to like just be 110% of that person that you were looking for. And I think sometimes it takes finding ourselves to find that person. So I think that's really, really great.
Absolutely. I had
Yeah.
never spoken about my anxiety or my OCD with a boy. It was always just surface level fun. And I think that's what was missing. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I opened up to my current boyfriend about my mental health, that's what really brought us closer and kind of opened up the door for such a deep spiritual connection. Like
Hmm.
I never really cried in front of a guy before, and now I cry like every month or every other month because that's who I am. I'm an emotional, anxious 20 something, and that's just life. But it's so
Yeah.
beautiful to own who you are and not have to hide it anymore, especially in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's really fulfilling when you start to have those deep conversations with potential partners. And I'm all about deep talk. I love just getting into it. Even on the first date, I'm probably a little insane for that because I just like start asking them about like all of their trauma. But it's good to know and it's good to open up and like give a little piece of yourself. And maybe not everything in the first date, but to feel comfortable enough to share at least like a little part of you, I think is important.
I always say I spill my guts. Like on the first date, I probably also said too much, but I kind of knew it was okay because
You
like
felt
there was
safe.
that connection. It felt, it felt safe. I knew I could open up. I couldn't do that with just anyone, but when you know, you know.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody that is maybe wanting to put themselves out there a little more, whether that's getting on social media, trying out the whole content creation thing, or writing a book, or just being vulnerable? Like, what advice would you give to somebody that is scared to take that leap? Because you did it and you did it like so perfectly. And yeah, you're such an inspiration to so many women and young women. And it's truly incredible.
Thank you. I would say just lead with your passion. Like find what you're passionate about and let that drive you every day. Like in moments when I'm bored, I kind of look within and I'm like, okay, what's going to make me feel the most fulfilled right now? And yes, it's harder if you're a little shyer and not so confident putting yourself out there. But, like baby steps. I'm thinking of like singing as an example. I used to sing, not anymore. I used to sing. And for years, my mom would tell me, you should get an agent, like you should audition for Broadway, like all this stuff. And I'm like, no, like it's so not me. I was so shy. I used to like cry when people clapped for me at my birthday, all of that. And I slowly, like, I started off like doing singing videos in like photo booth just for myself. Then I'd have friends over and like we'd sing together in photo booth. And then like one day I made like a little iMovie and I played it for my parents. And then after that, like my cousin and I did like a little performance for our family. And then like you take slow baby steps until one day you're like, okay, I'm actually going to dive into this. Poor example because the singing never worked out, but you take like baby steps in order to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. Well, that's another vulnerable thing to do is sing in front of people. So I feel like once you take that step, it's like, oh, I can do anything now. So yeah, I think that's actually a really good example. Absolutely. So yeah.
Everything else will, once you can sing in front of people, you can do anything. Sing and everything else fall into place.
I agree. I think when you're confident enough to do that, like everything else just follows after. But I used to sing as well, and then I had an ex tell me that I was bad, so I never sang again. I know. What are these men doing? They're traumatizing people. No, I'm kidding. But
I just got sick of it.
Wait, what?
I just got sick of it.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe you should pick it back up. We need to hear your voice.
I don't have time.
After the books.
On my Peloton, and that's it. I'll like be in a
Peloton. Oh my gosh.
I'll start like singing.
I know you're a big Peloton girl.
Oh my god. Eat, sleep, breathe, Peloton.
I used to be on the app and it's absolutely incredible. I didn't have a Peloton myself, but I would do the body weight strength exercises. It's so truly amazing.
Who did you take?
Olivia Amato. I really like her.
Okay. I can see that. I can see you vibing with her.
I actually ran into her. I wasn't living here at the time, but I was like in Soho shopping and I saw her on the street, and I also had just passed out in the street like the day before and had 2 black eyes. And it was a really crazy experience. It was wild. I could talk about it for hours, but I ran into her and I had 2 black eyes. I was like, Olivia. And she looked at me. I said it in a way where it was like someone you knew. Yeah. And she was like, hey. I was like, big fan. She was like, thanks. And like walked away. But I was like, I probably just scared the shit out of her.
Oh my god. Wait, that's actually hilarious.
Have you ever seen any of your Peloton instructors in person?
Yes. Oh my God. So in 2020, it was like you couldn't meet anyone. Like they were all like celebrities, like hidden in quarantine. So I would be like hoping and praying to like meet one of them. So I think it was like 2021. They had like a book signing event for Tunde's book. And I showed up because I thought I was just going to meet Tunde. They were all there, like every single one in the audience. I think I started like crying. I was so happy. Like, it was
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
And then
That's really cool.
my favorite Peloton instructor is Jen Sherman. And I got into her class in person, and I have pictures like hysterical crying on the bike in her class.
Oh my gosh, that's precious. You were so excited.
I was so
Yeah.
excited. This is like celebrities. Like if I met like Dua Lipa, like I wouldn't care. If I met like Peloton Jen, I would be like on the floor.
You're like, I hang out with you every day. You're my best friend, but you don't know it yet.
You know
I love
me,
that.
it's okay.
I think that there's such like a personal connection with like your instructors on that app and on the bike, because if it's something that you're doing every day, it's definitely a way for you to connect with them, and they always tell stories, and it's super cool. It's a great brand. I'm obsessed.
I mean,
but
especially during the pandemic, like I like to say I had nothing during the pandemic but Peloton. Like my mental health was suffering. I was only around my parents. I didn't see any friends for a year. All I had was Peloton. So it really like saved my sanity. I would just watch Jen's classes every day, and I'd feel like I'm not alone. And that's kind of stuck with me.
That's so true. I love that. I think fitness is a great way to persevere out of really challenging times, and those endorphins and just the overall mental clarity it gives you is like so empowering. And I'm sure it helped you to continue writing this book and to make it happen. So I'm so honored to have had you on. But I do have one last question for you. And this is something I ask all of my guests. And I feel like it's really interesting because everybody always has a really different answer. Okay. But if you were to drink a martini in a bikini, where would you be and what would you be drinking?
Ooh. So I'm more of a pina colada girl.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so I'm not a big drinker in general, but
that's okay.
Pina colada, and I would probably be in Hawaii.
I want to go there so bad.
In the world.
That sounds incredible. A pina colada in Hawaii. I like need to be there ASAP.
No, it's making me sad. I want to go on a vacation.
I know, me too. I'm getting that itch. It's like summer is approaching and I just want to be in a bikini somewhere and living my best life. So yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Hot girl summer is approaching, but I would love for you to share with the audience how they can stay in touch and follow along with your journey, read your book, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'll start with a book. It's right here. Shameless plug. You can get my real life rom-com. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, basically wherever you can get a book. And you can find me on all social media at Carrie Berk with an extra K at the end.
Perfect. Well, it was such a pleasure having you on, Carrie. You are such like a bright light and so talented and such an inspiration for all women. And I think it's just truly amazing what you were able to produce. And I'm so excited for everybody to read the book. And I'll make sure to put everything in the show notes so that everybody can stay in touch and they can read for themselves. But thank you so much.
Thank you.